Today, the Supreme Court appears divided over President Trump's plan to end birthright citizenship.
Yeah, Trump wants to adopt new meaning to the 14th Amendment, which gives legal citizenship to all children born in the U.S., regardless of the citizenship of their parents. Several state courts have already blocked this from happening, but a ruling by the Supreme Court could change that, giving Trump's plan essentially the green light. So to discuss this, of course, we want to bring in our 9 News legal analyst, Whitney Traylor. Yeah. I just want to start by talking about birthright citizenship because, I mean, I've read the Constitution, right? We're talking about 14th A, Section 1. It says pretty explicitly birthright citizenship is a part of the Constitution. It's a right given to us all. How is this even a legal argument?
Yeah, that's a great point and a great lead-in. I mean, this is a fundamental tenet to our Constitution, is that if you're born on this soil, regardless of your parents' status, origin, any of that, you are a citizen. And this came out of the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868. This came out of the Dred Scott decision, which was in 1857, which said that black people born here, whether free or enslaved, are not U.S. citizens. Right. And so it was a separate class. And so in response to that, Congress then passed this 14th Amendment with this birthright citizenship. So this hasn't been, and then it's been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court even as early as in the 1890s. So it has been affirmed over and over. This is a kind of a well-settled legal principle. And now, through an executive order, President Trump is now trying to eradicate that and say that it doesn't matter if you're born here, one of your parents has to be a citizen. And so what's really bizarre about this is he's really trying to undo a constitutional amendment with an executive order. So yes, the legal issue is, it's very one-sided, in my opinion, and most legal experts.
And I was looking at the updates throughout the hearing today, and the Supreme Court was torn. So you were also listening to the oral arguments. Yes. What stood out to you?
Yeah, they were torn, but really what stood out was the focus was not really on the legality or the constitutionality of the actual order, but whether or not the judges, these federal district court judges, have the authority to issue a nationwide injunction that would then affect everybody, whether you're a party or not. And so that's essentially what the focus became. And the judges really, and you could see the divide based on the liberal and conservative justices in terms of where they were leaning. But it was really about whether or not these district court judges have that authority. Because they've ruled consistently, they've all ruled that you do have birthright citizenship. So all of these judges have ruled against them, and 3 appellate courts have upheld those decisions. So on the merit, I think the president has an uphill battle.
And we know this is just day one, and it takes, the justices months, sometimes even longer, to come to a conclusion with these things to make their final decision. But if you kind of look into your mirror ball, what do you think? Which way do you think this is leaning?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I get the sense that the justices, even the conservative justices, are saying, no, you have this birthright citizenship. It can't be undone. But I also get the sense that the conservative justices are leaning towards eradicating this nationwide injunction, if you will. And so, and because a lot of their questions were around, well, these plaintiffs who were potentially harmed, they could have brought this in other ways other than getting a nationwide injunction. And so they were suggesting a class action and things like that. And that's why your clip of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson really made sense, because she's saying, okay, well, one state could say, yeah, the executive order is lawful, and you're not a citizen, you're not entitled to any of these benefits, you can't get health care, all these other things. And another state could say, no, that executive order is unlawful. And so you'll be chasing, so it would be all across the board. And so it just doesn't make any sense.
That's what was confusing to me earlier. I mean, I've had my children in 2 different states, and there was someone that went up there and actually talked about that.
Right.
So that, to me, paints a really tough picture moving forward.
Yes.
Let's say that the courts rule in Trump's favor. What would happen then?
Well, we're going to see a lot of litigation. And I think if the court did rule in his favor, I don't think they would rule on the merits and saying that, hey, birthright citizenship is over. I think what they would say is that these judges can't impose this injunction. And so then what you would see is the Trump lawyers running to various jurisdictions to enforce their executive order. And this is really my big fear, is that if they enforce the executive order and somebody's damaged by it, let's say they get deported or they're denied benefits or whatever, if they have to go through the process of suing and it takes 2 or 3 or 4 years, the damage has been done to them already. So that's the real concern, but that's really what the Trump administration is proposing, and that's what would happen. And you'd see a flurry of lawsuits coming forward.
Before we let you go, let's just for a second take the birthright citizenship of it all out of it. And what are the implications of an executive order being able to affect the U.S. Constitution? That feels like a very scary, dangerous thing.
Well, it's a very scary and dangerous thing, and this is what we came from a monarch. This is why we had the revolution and why we have a separation of powers, and we have 3 branches of government, and they're supposed to be co-equal branches. Now, what you've seen in just these 3 or 4 months is a complete consolidation of power in the executive branch. And really, to Trump's credit, he went about this in a very aggressive and effective way, because what he did was sort of like start punching first and then ask questions later and let it sort out in the court. But in the meantime, for example, the people who have been deported, even if it's deemed, hey, that was an unconstitutional deportation, well, they're already gone, right? And so this is, I think, what was behind the strategy, is just hit on all forces, kind of shock and awe, and then let the courts sort it out. And that's a really scary thing. I mean, and the way he's going about it by using different departments. So, for example, the Department of Defense and things like that, or just various agencies to help with the deportations, is really a smart way of doing it. But it is probably unconstitutional, a lot of what he's doing.
We'll be talking about this for a long time to come. Whitney Traylor, thank you for your insight as always. Really breaking it down and making it make sense. That's why we have you.
Trying to keep it brief.
Whitney Traylor, thank you. We'll be right back.